I'm Joe Duffy of OffshoreInsiders.com. We are going to have a football betting preview with an NFL pick for this Sunday, December the 10th. Remember, if you are watching this before the Army-Navy game, we've got a wise guy play up for the Army-Navy side. We've got a major play for the total, and Sunday we're going to have a big portfolio. We already have a wise guy play up, and then just a few minutes before I recorded this video, got off of a Skype confab with some of the sharpest minds in the world. Definitely going to be adding quite a few NFL winners, most likely by the time you see this report. Visit OffshoreInsiders.com for all the details. Make sure you subscribe to us if you're watching this on YouTube. Do that. Join us on Twitter at OffshoreInsider. Note there's no S at the end on the website. It's OffshoreInsiders.com, but subscribe to us and follow us on Offshore Insider. If you like this information, please help us out. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll try to answer any comments you have, and feel free to share it. Now some news and notes for this weekend. The Bears and the Bengals. Bears have gone under 8-4 this year. That record is in a four-way tie as the top under team. Now going against a team that is 2-1 straight up their last three, and fairly big favorites despite not being a very good team according to their straight up record, are a go against of 69-35. That would favor the Bears in this situation. Bengals, of course, off a short week to the Steelers. If any team's going to have a little bit of a letdown, remember, that was a big rivalry game, very nasty, very physical, so the short week could certainly affect them. Now, conversely, though, teams that blew big leads the previous week and are playing at home are 58-38. That would favor the Bengals in this situation. Teams that are at least 2 games under 500, yet laying 6.5 or more, just 158 and 219, so that would say to fade the Bengals or, of course, go with the Bears. Packers and the Browns, teams that have lost at least 21 out of 22, are a go against of 24-8 against the spread. And that's very significant because, as we keep telling you, the NFL is the #1 regression to the mean sport. For the most part, you usually want to go with very bad teams and against very good teams. But the Browns continue to be the exception. Teams that are extraordinarily bad over a 2-year period are go against. Now, winless teams, though, in Game 6 or later in a winnable game, meaning they're getting 3.5 or less, the odds makers are telling you this is a very winnable game for them, they are 28-19-2 against the spread, 20-11 if they are an underdog, and that would favor the Browns. Detroit and Tampa. Detroit is a #2 over team in the NFL, going over by 7.1 points per game, and a league leading over 9-3. Now, when we say we're going, they're going over or they're failing to cover by, etc., some people know that as a sweat barometer. Either way, we consider that a little bit more accurate than simply quoting a spread record or an over-under record. Again, it says the teams are, they are failing to cover or they are covering by this certain amount. Now, only 2 teams have gone over by an average of more than 3.6 points per game. Again, telling you that the NFL is a regression to the mean sport. It's very rare when a team consistently goes over or consistently goes under, but Detroit is the outlier. They are the exception to the rule. Now, Matt Stafford is questionable at the time we do file this report with an injured throwing hand. It's very important to note we will be here Sunday morning. Make sure you go to OffshoreInsiders.com or follow us on Twitter at Offshore Insider. We do update Sunday mornings. We do it live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, but that's okay. You'll be able to see the rebroadcast. We upload it immediately to YouTube after that. So just join us at OffshoreInsiders.com. We will have the link to that. We will have late-breaking injury information. We'll have late-breaking weather, betting information as far as public consensus, contrarian, sharps versus square. Make sure you subscribe to us on Twitter at Offshore Insider. Now, Jake Rudock is a backup. He would get the start for Detroit if Stafford cannot go. He's got only 5 pass attempts. Again, as we file this report, no line. If Stafford does play, we expect the line to be about -2.5. If he's not playing, they would actually be, Detroit would be the underdog with the unproven quarterback, right around 3 points. The Seahawks and the Jaguars. The Jags, the second best against the spread team in the NFL, based on margin of cover or the so-called sweat barometer. They've covered by an average of 8 points per game, even though their spread record is a little bit more modest at 7-5. Seahawks have gone under 8-4. That record is in a four-way tie for the top under team. Again, that would be based on record. The Jets and the Broncos, and make sure you get all your gift needs at duffygifts.com. duffygifts.com. The Jets and the Broncos. Denver is the worst against the spread team in the NFL at minus 9.2 points per game. They're 2-9 against the spread. So yeah, after 11 games, being a negative 9.2, that is pretty significant. Tennessee and Arizona. Arizona, the second worst against the spread margin at minus 6, and they're 3-8 against the spread. The Eagles versus the Rams. Rams have the best against the spread margin in the NFL at plus 8.7 at 8-4. Philadelphia is off of a road game at Seattle, so this is a tough spot for them. However, the Eagles are tied for the best against the spread record at 9-3, third best against the spread margin, covering by an average of 7.8 points per game. When a road team is off of a road loss, that is, so they're playing consecutive road games and they're off of a loss, they're actually 71-31 and 45-13 as underdogs. So that's not really all that surprising. The teams generally do bounce back because we said it's a regression to the mean sport. The Eagles off of a tough game and in a tough spot. I think the public, if anything, and again, on Sunday morning on our broadcast, we will look very closely at the public betting trends. But you can see here how the public's going to say, yeah, maybe I do want to bet on Seattle because the Eagles are in a really, on the Rams after playing Seattle because the Eagles are in a tough spot here. But in fact, teams generally do well in this quote-unquote tough spot that Philadelphia is in. 49ers and the Texans, again, also brought to you by DuffyGifts.com. Houston, shockingly the top over team based on margin of cover. They're going over by an average of 8 points per game, yet their record is only 6-6 to the over, because remember, with Tom Savage taking over, that's changed the complexion of the team. They've actually gone under 4 of their last 5 recently, but they're still an over team overall based on the margin of going over. So what it says is when they've gone over by large margins. When they've gone under by smaller margins. Washington at the LA Chargers. The Chargers, the second best under team based on margin, going under by an average of 5 points per game and under 8-4 for the year. They are in a 4-way tie as the top under team for second. That is a 4-way tie for second place as a top under team. Steelers under 8-4 in that 4-way tie. The Titans and the Cardinals. That was the Ravens and the Steelers game. Now the Titans and the Cardinals. When you have a medium range total, 2 average offenses have gone under 97 and 69. Now, we do have a database where we keep the official data. When it comes to totals, there can be a little bit of variance. That's why we want something to be statistically significant. Usually at least 80 units on the plus side, or it's got a Z-factor of 4.5 or higher. So especially when it comes to totals, some databases can slightly vary. StatFox, where I got this from, claims a little bit better record, especially when they go back to 1983. But we're going to go by our database. Now, also do want to warn you, one of the reasons this is not a premium play, it has gone over 4 straight and 7 of the last 9. So yeah, it is an under trend, but it is going over lately, short term. Vikings and the Panthers. The Vikings tied for a league best 9-3 against the spread record with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're tied, but a more modest 5th best against the spread margin, covering by an average of 5.4 points per game. Look, the Minnesota Vikings, their best defense is a good offense. They're keeping their defense off of the field as Latavius Murray. Look, they really don't miss Dalvin Cook all that much. And arguably, Latavius Murray is a better running back for their defense. Again, keeping that defense off of the field. He's got 75 or more rushing yards in each of the last 3 games. And as we said, he's not the breakaway guy like Cook, so he's getting them in smaller chunks and keeping that defense off of the field. Vikings are holding teams to well below their normal yards per game average. They're holding teams to 6.8 passing yards per attempt to just 6. So they're holding teams to well below their average against the run and against the pass. Panthers, though, holding teams to 0.2 yards per carry and 0.5 yards per rush below their normal average. So 2 good defenses here. With a home game versus the Bengals plus Green Bay and Chicago, the Vikings can really kind of put all their emotional eggs right here. This is their toughest remaining game, indeed. The Vikings are in a nice stretch of not turning the ball over, which fits them into a nice angle at 167 to 115, which says when a team is protecting the ball lately, go with them. The Panthers' tight end, Greg Olsen, is probable. He averages 80 catches a year the last 3 years. Newton has been incredibly inconsistent. 4 times this year, Cam Newton, the Carolina Panthers quarterback, has exceeded the 100 passer rating. 5 games, though, he's been below 70. And there's no real pattern. Is he doing it, is he playing his best against certain teams or playing his worst against certain teams, etc.? No. One of his best games all year was against the New Orleans Saints. One of his worst games all year was against the New Orleans Saints. We like to use unpredictability to our favor. We like to say predictably unpredictable when you're talking about a big underdog. And anytime you have a home underdog, that is in and of itself a big underdog, but especially with them getting a few points, the percentages would say that a quarterback like Newton is a good go against as a big favorite, a good go with as a big underdog because he is that box of chocolates. The Raiders and the Chiefs go with a team in a nice stretch of not turning the ball over is also benefits Kansas City at 167 and 115, that angle we just told you. But strangely enough, when you're talking about a substantially worse turnover team, it's 569 and 434, and that would benefit the Raiders. Now, we say uncertainty is good, but again, at 3.5, you got the home team's a 3.5-point favorite. Remember, home field advantage is worth 3 points. So both of these teams have been, kind of crazy. You don't know what you're going to get with these teams, but there's no real advantage when you got a road team only getting 3.5. In a regression of the mean sport, the fact that the Chiefs have dropped 6 of 7 and the Raiders have won 2 straight, it would actually say go with a colder team under these circumstances, and it would lean towards Kansas City. Now, they got the same record, but the home field has meant very little to Kansas City as they're 3-2 straight up at home. Oakland's 2-3 straight up on the road. I do a video with our friends at Sportsbook Review, and they asked me to single out a game that's too risky to bet. This was a game that I singled out. A lot of conflicting information on each side. And again, considering home field advantage is worth 3 points, the odds makers are not even giving you a chance to bet on a big underdog. Redskins and the Chargers, that angle we told you about earlier, medium range total, 2 average offenses going under 97 and 69, but admittedly, short term it's trending over. Join us Sunday for updates on weather, injuries, consensus, and more. And I'll give you some trends on some select games this weekend. The Colts and the Bills, all records are against the spread. Colts 27 and 13 following a spread loss. 32 and 13 following a straight-up loss. The Bills are 8 and 28 following a double-digit loss at home. Minnesota and Carolina. Minnesota has covered incredibly 40 out of their last 55. Chicago and Cincinnati. Cincinnati is 18 and 7 in the month of September. The Bears are 16 and 39 after allowing more than 250 yards passing in their previous contest. Green Bay at Cleveland. Packers 39 and 17 after allowing more than 350 total yards passing in their previous game. The Browns, meanwhile, 8 and 22 after allowing more than 250 yards passing in their last contest. Joe Duffy's picks will have all the best sports picks at offshoreinsiders.com this weekend. We already know we have at least one wise guy for Sunday, and again, moments before following this report, spoke to some really sharp minds who have put me over the top on a couple other games. We're going to write up that stuff shortly. By the time you see this, just check offshoreinsiders.com for the details. San Fran and Houston, the 49ers, 11 and 24 after accumulating more than 350 total yards in their previous contest. The Texans are 8 and 2 after allowing more than 150 yards rushing in their last game. Oakland and Kansas City, the Chiefs are 8 and 1 after allowing more than 250 passing yards in their previous contest. Remember, folks, like, share, comment if you want more free information like this. Detroit and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 23 and 48 at home. Join us on offshoreinsiders.com for more great information. We'll also remind you Sunday morning when we'll have updates with injuries, weather, and public betting information, and a whole lot more. Again, Twitter at offshoreinsider with no S at the end, and the website is offshoreinsiders.com. Please show your support for the OffshoreInsiders.com podcast by betting at mybookie.ag and use the promo code Duffy, D-U-F-F-Y. You will get a 50% sign-up bonus. Yep, you deposit $1,000, you'll have $1,500 to bet with. I personally have used them for several years. My clients also use them, and many of my clients bet big, and all my clients win big. They always pay on time, never a hassle, as easy of a sports book to ever use, and I've used dozens and dozens throughout the years. MyBookie.ag, promo code Duffy, D-U-F-F-Y, mybookie.ag.